name is Jan-Emmanuel Neve. I'm an associate professor of economics and strategy here at the Saïd Business School, and I study the economics of happiness. Each year, on March 20th, which is the official UN International Day of Happiness, we report on the global rankings of happiness around the world. The data set that we rely upon in order to be able to do this global research is the Gallup World Poll, which surveys 156 countries representing about 99% of the population. And they've been doing this for almost a decade now, going into every single country around the world with an expert surveying team and interviewing people about their well-being and a number of other important aspects of life, including a whole lot about how they're doing in their jobs. This represents a data set close to 2 million people. We organized the research by way of three main avenues. One is the importance of having a job in the first place. The second avenue that we looked into or investigated was the job type that people perform and how does that relate to people's well-being. And then finally, what characteristics of a job are associated or predictive of larger or greater well-being. We asked them to rate the quality of their lives, where 10 is of course being very, very satisfied with one's life, and 0 being deeply unsatisfied with one's life. So what we find is that on average around the world, people score about 5.5, 6 out of 10 on evaluating the quality of their lives. But we find a major difference between people who are employed, which score about 6, versus people who are unemployed, who are almost a whole point lower. The second avenue of research that we report in this chapter is about the job type of employed people. And so what we found there is across the world a very strong divide between what one could call white collar versus blue collar type jobs. So people in manual labor report being much less happy, both in life satisfaction or emotions or negative emotions. When you actually focus into what one could call the white collar type jobs, you find another big split between sort of higher level management, officials, executives type jobs as compared to more clerical office worker type jobs, where again you find a strong split in terms of self-reported well-being, job satisfaction, engagement, and positive emotions. And finally, we looked at and investigated what the characteristics of the job are that seem to be most predictive of people's general well-being in a more holistic sense. And so what we found there is one, lo and behold, obviously income does matter, but at very much a diminishing marginal return to further and greater income. But putting that aside, what we found, and this is perhaps more surprising, is a whole lot of non-pecuniary aspects of the job that were highly predictive of people's well-being. The first one that kind of came up was really the work-life balance of people. So people really seem to appreciate it as manifested in their well-being indicators, the fact that they have a better sense of being able to manage both work and life. A second important aspect that came through in the data was the notion of having an interesting job. A third item that came in very strongly was also having a sense of control, autonomy in your job, rather than having it imposed too much. And finally, an important characteristic of on the job of predicting well-being was also a sense of social capital. So how much support do you find amongst your immediate colleagues in the job day in, day out? For policymakers, I think the results of this chapter are pretty clear. Even more emphasis needs to be put on the importance of generating jobs and good quality jobs. So this may come at the expense of other priority items such as targeting inflation. Another aspect for policymakers would be to really guard against the scarring effects of falling unemployed. Happiness could not be more serious for business leaders because there's a direct relationship between how happy employees are and how productive they are. We now know this from causal evidence in the lab through experiments and interventions. We also know that happiness statistics from the workplace are actually predictive, in fact more predictive of bottom line outcomes, say quarterly results, as those quarterly results are predictive of people's well-being in the job. My hope for what would result from having researched this chapter is that managers and policymakers take jobs even more importantly than they did before and try and raise the quality of these jobs as well. And that they realize very much that there are objective benefits to putting this subjective notion of well-being center stage in the workplace.